glad that you're here this morning. We hear these beautiful words at the end of this reading today that just give us great encouragement, right? Jesus had made him well. Today we have a carefully placed gospel reading for us to remind us of a number of things and to teach us about who God is, and to teach us especially what his commands are for us. What is it that he wishes us to do? Over and over, Jesus says, right towards the end, that those who obey my commands will be the ones who will be with me. Not those who neglect. Not those who say it with their mouth, but don't live it in their lives and don't believe it in their lives. Today we have a wonderful story. And I want to just walk through this story and see all of the wonderful types and the wonderful, beautiful things that even a healing that Jesus does for a purpose and a meaning has great value to us. There's right now a popular depiction of Jesus' life out called The Chosen. And it's excellent. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it, because it's a really vivid and realistic view of how Jesus lived. And they actually have, one of the episodes is on this exact passage. And it's very powerful to see, because everything in the church is really about timing. It's all about God's timing and how he purposes things. And you know this in your own life, where you see the timing of God work things out when your timing was another plan. But your plan didn't work out. Now, occasionally, our plans do work out, and they work out, at least we think they're our plans, right? But we might say that God's timing for us as Christians always works out just as he wills it. And this man had been paralyzed for 38 years, lying in the porticos, which clearly from the reading today was a place where many people were sick. Many people laid there. Many people awaited on this miracle to happen. They called it an angel. The fathers say really didn't know what it was. It was something mysterious. No one knew where the power came from or what happened, but apparently when the waters started to move and stir, the first one in this group of people who was sick to get to the pool first would be the one who would be healed. And this only happened once a year. So it was something you had to wait on. And every year the man would wait, and he would always miss the opportunity because someone else was there to get in before him. Maybe someone with a lesser malady. He obviously was paralyzed and could not walk and could not move. And so it's a great mystery as to what this was. But here we have the entry of the great mystery himself, Jesus Christ, enters onto this scene, and we have this beautiful story. So let's take a moment and talk about the porches and the porticos. Notice that there's the number 5 listed here, right? 5 porches. And the fathers tell us that this represents the Pentateuch, the law, okay? The first 5 books of the Old Testament, right? And that the symbolism here, the typology here, is that all of these people could not get into the pool. But all these people were sick and infirm, and they were under the law. They were under these 5 porticos and under the law. And that sickness of the law was their problem, because they could never meet up to it. They could never do enough, be enough, or have enough righteousness to be able to really be healed. And Jesus knew this. But then, notice what the man says. When the Lord asks him that very important question, do you really want to be healed? Sometimes God has to ask us the same question. Do we want to be healed? Sometimes our sin and sometimes the things that we are attached to and addicted to and love and can't be without are more important. And we don't really want to be healed. So God asks a very important question to this man. Do you want to be healed? And he doesn't right away say yes, by the way, does he? He says, well, I have no man, he says, to put me into the water. And the words even of the paralytic are so vivid, right? I have no man. And who is there before him but the one who is called the man, Jesus Christ, the creator of all things, the one who is the mystery mover of the waters, the one who is the great healer, the great physician. He's standing in front of him right at this moment, showing his own person to be the way to salvation. And so he was paralyzed, and he asked the man, do you really want to be healed? He said, another steps down before me, and then immediately Jesus says to him these three things. So rise, take up your bed, and walk. It's a wonderful homily by St. Augustine, who gives a really bold homily about this passage. And he clarifies this in this way and says that the Lord gave him these important three commands, but really he narrows it down to really just two. Because he said arising was not really a command. When the man's legs were healed, you can imagine the first thing he did was to try to stand up. So arising is really something that really wasn't in the command. But the other two were, right? Take up your bed and walk. Interesting, the icon today for the healing of the paralytic. Notice how large his bed is, right? He's got a gigantic bed, for one man. Well, perhaps it's because he was there for 38 years. And, he had found this to be a place that he liked to stay and where he lodged. But his bed is very large. It's a great burden, it looks like, to carry. He's even bent over, right? And can't quite straighten up in the icon. So, St. Augustine reminds us that the man was in this position for 38 years. And why the number 38? Well, St. Augustine, he takes the line that 40 is the perfect number in Israel. 40 is the number of manifestation, right? So we have Moses in the desert for 40 days, up on the mountain for 40 days, fasting, and comes out revealed, right, as the shining with God. Elijah, the same way as a prophet, would fast for 40 days for the great miracles that he did. And then we have Jesus, who fasted for 40 days as well. And then we have the great and holy fast. All of them leading to a fulfillment, right? But this man was missing 2 years. He was missing two numbers. 38 is not the number, it's 40. And Augustine says, well, that's because the two other numbers are the two things that he lacked, which were these two commandments, to take up his bed and to walk. And he said that these two commandments really represent the two most important commandments that we have, which is to love the Lord your God with all your mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, right? And these are the two pivotal commandments that even Jesus says all the commandments could be summed up in this one statement. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So Augustine, interestingly, and this is beautiful, he sees these two parts of the command as representing the carrying of the bed, which is the bearing of one another's burdens. Okay, by loving our neighbor, we bear their burdens. We take on them in our lives. And then the walking is the love of God. And he ties this together because if you'll notice in the passage, if we step back to it again, so after he rises and walks, okay, he's, of course, he's healed completely. So he's not going to stand still. He's not going to lay down again. He's going to be moving around. And so it says that immediately the man was made well. He took up his bed and walked. And that day was the Sabbath, and the Jews saw that he was cured, and perhaps were even watching, because at this point Jesus had been, had people that were kind of tailing him, as they say, paying attention to where he was going, and probably scrutinizing everything that he said and he did. And obviously they saw what he did, but because it was the Sabbath day and Jesus healed, he did not actually command him to do it. I mean, he did command him to do something, but they didn't go to Jesus. Instead, they went to the man that was making doing the act of carrying this big heavy bed. And when they went to him, they, inquired of him, and he said, I don't know who he is. But we later find that this was the porticos, and these were on the outside of the temple. I mean, they were in the temple city grounds, but not in the temple itself. And here we see, where does Jesus find him? But in the temple. He didn't go home. Y'all would have thought, well, when he was healed, he would have ran home and been like, even though he probably didn't have a home at this point, 38 years. But where did he go? He went to give thanks to God. He went to go into the temple. Jesus finds him then in the temple. So St. Augustine takes these two parallel things, that the 38 has to make up the 40 that makes up the perfection, right? And those two things are the love of our neighbor, the bearing of their burdens in particular, not just the loving of our neighbor. So, I love my neighbor. But what are you doing for your neighbor? How are you helping them? And I must say, in our parish, we have been exampling that to each other. And I appreciate all of you and your efforts to help one another when you're in need. Because this is very important. If we cannot help one another here in this house, in this family, then how can we help anybody even outside of ourselves? But I want to thank you for those of you who have reached out and have helped others, even our own parish. This is very important. This is what it means to bear one another's burdens. It means to take time from your day or take some effort to help someone else beyond what you would normally do for your own life is a way of bearing one another's burdens. And that's the example that Christ gives to make up the 40, to be the perfection, right? To be the completion. And then the walking is the walking to the temple, the walking to God. Everyone walks to come to church, right? Part of our worship is walking. We walk into church, right? There's many people that don't do this, but we have to walk all the way to the icon. We venerate the icon. We walk to the Lord. We face him. This is our call to actually live out this faith. The man has been provided for us. The man has brought us in to the healing of God, taken us out of the porticos. We're no longer under the law. We're now under the Spirit. We're under this walk, this journey to the Father. Just like the prodigal son that comes running and walking back, right? Walking and running are part of what makes us human beings. And these are types and symbols to lead us to God. We also have an epistle reading. What a powerful reading. To show that this was not just ended with Jesus, but a continuation that Peter himself would rise up Tabitha from the dead. Just like Jesus did. Brothers and sisters, we are called to pray for one another, to bear one another's burdens, to do the same thing, to heal one another, to raise up one another from death and despair. When you see someone down, you should be trying to lift them up wherever you can. This is our call. Just like the paralytic of old, as we sing about, right? Just like the paralytic of old, the Lord has risen us up. He calls us now. He calls us to bear our burdens, to bear one another's burdens, and to walk toward God. Christ is risen. Christos voskreset. Christos aneste.